The Tokyo Game Show is coming to a close. And while of course we didn't get the super awesome Final Fantasy XVI trailer that we were hoping for, you know, the same one we were told multiple times over that we weren't gonna get. However, thanks to Final Fantasy father Hironobu Sakaguchi, we were able to squeeze a little bit of information out of Naoki Yoshida. It really was nice to sit down with these two creators and have them discuss the appeal and potential of RPGs. Two of the greatest minds this industry has ever seen coming together was something truly special. I am literally the biggest fanboy of both of these men. No, both of these kings. Here are the details that we've gotten about Final Fantasy XVI. The main scenario of the game is complete, and currently they're working on the last parts of side quests. The game's character models are done, though Naoki Yoshida noted that they still want to increase the graphical quality of them before the game releases. He notes that they've been working on this game for quite a long time now, which based on the information we have appears to be around 5-ish years, and something that is going to greatly upset the turn-based purist, but the game is said to be a very heavy action-oriented game. Now with this information, such as many of the assets being done, as well as them currently wrapping up all of the content related to side quests, that seems to highly suggest that Final Fantasy XVI is pretty much done. This game is not far off at all. This all seems to suggest that they're in the last stages of development, and this is something that even Sakaguchi noted. Sakaguchi, so the game is pretty much done. Yoshida, yes, character models are done too, but we need to increase quality in some parts. Sakaguchi, that's great. You guys, the chance that we are going to see this game in 2022 is looking higher and higher. I do not believe this game is as far off as many people think whatsoever. In fact, I think we're looking at a late 2022 release date. Sakaguchi also asked Yoshida to let him write a side quest for Final Fantasy XVI, much like how Yoko Taro requested. Unfortunately, Yoshida had to decline because they're already working on the last bits of side quests, and of course inserting a new side quest that late into the game's development would tremendously complicate things and slow things down. However, Sakaguchi then made a counter argument to let him do something on Final Fantasy XIV, like design a piece of glam. I for one would love my character to rock some Hironobu Sakaguchi glam. He also noted that if he were to write something, he doubted he could do anything better than Yoko Taro or Matsuno. Though personally, I would love to see a Hironobu Sakaguchi raid series for Final Fantasy XIV. As many of you already know, Sakaguchi has begun his adventures in Eorzea just recently, even managing to score himself a chocobo. I mean, just look at him with the FF1 Warrior of Light helmet. This is so precious. Lastly, Yoshida noted that the dev team started off small but worked mainly on scenarios first before anything else. He said they did this because they wanted to know exactly what kind of game they wanted to make before they started increasing the team size. Final Fantasy XIV has some of the best stories that have ever been told in the Final Fantasy series, and it's worth pointing out they create those expansions in the time span of 2.5 years. These are really short time spans in which they come up with these stories, so to think that Final Fantasy XVI has already received double this amount of time just goes to show how fantastic Final Fantasy XVI is probably going to be. If you can create something like Shadowbringers in roughly 2-ish years, then what can you do with more than double that time? Creative Business Unit 3 is absolutely on fire right now. From the explosion of Final Fantasy XIV, to the highly anticipated Final Fantasy XVI, to the advent of Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker, there is literally no slowing down Creative Business Unit 3. And it truly is fantastic to see this team inherit the numbered Final Fantasy series. And my hope is that they won't just stop at Final Fantasy XIV and XVI, but will continue to be the future leaders and creatives of Final Fantasy in general. But with that said, Ultima, I want to hear from you. When do you think Final Fantasy XVI will be releasing? Subscribe, hit the bell icon, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Shout out to patron Eric and the rest of the Ultima community.